Here are some of the top things you should know before moving to Alaska. What is up, everybody? Justin Millett here at Inspire Realty Group, and I want to get on here because Alaska is this mysterious place, and there are probably a few things you should know before you move to Alaska. So, number one, it is bear country. So we actually have more bears than humans in the state of Alaska. So brushing up on bear safety, as you will encounter them even in the largest city of Anchorage. We do have bears on the hillside, and we actually assign bear-proof trash cans to some of our residents because, like I said, we actually have more bears than humans in the state. Number two is Alaska's kind of a high cost of living. We're very close to Hawaii as far as cost of living. Our average home price in the Anchorage area is around $420,000. And obviously things being shipped to Alaska, everything has to be shipped here or brought in by airplane. So a lot of cargo. Actually, Alaska is one of the leading airports in the world for air cargo. But as far as our cost of living goes, an average meal like burger and a beer is probably going to cost you between $15 and $20. Obviously gas is a little higher up here, milk, and of course the farther out you go from the main cities like Anchorage, Fairbanks, Wasilla, Palmer, the more expensive groceries, milk, gas, all these things are going to be. And if you get to some of the villages in western Alaska or southeast, your cost of 1 gallon of milk is going to be $10 to $15, depending on, of course, like I said, where you live. The average rent in the area of Anchorage is currently around $1,000 to $1,200 for a one-bedroom unit. We are looking at $1,500 roughly for a two-bedroom apartment, and of course a townhome, a three-bedroom duplex, or a single-family home is going to be $1,800 to $2,700 on up. And, of course, it's been a little bit challenging with rents currently. So just prepare to be patient. And like I said, that's our standard rents. Now, with that being said, Alaska has a lot of industries where we pay people really well. So we have a lot of healthcare, tourism, of course, a lot of oil production, and fishing, crabbing, seafood industry. And so we have a lot of jobs that pay really well, and part of that is because we do have a high cost of living, so they have to pay people accordingly. The third one is, yes, we do get paid to live in Alaska. So Alaska is actually one of the least taxed states in the nation. And on top of it, we get a thing called the permanent fund dividend. So what that is basically a bunch of, because we do produce so much oil on the north slope of Alaska and in different parts of Alaska and Kenai area and even the Cook Inlet. But those oil companies pay royalties to the state of Alaska. And that fund is called the permanent fund dividend, and it is managed by an investment group here attached to the state. And, of course, they build that portfolio. And then, of course, that is basically that portfolio is averaged over 5 years. And then part of that portfolio is dispersed to all of the eligible residents of Alaska that file for that permanent fund dividend. It has ranged anywhere from $800 all the way up to our largest one, which was $3,000 and roughly $3,500 per person in the household. So it could be quite a bit of money. Now, on to the other tip here is not every single place in Alaska is connected to the road system. It's actually quite common where you have to fly in someplace. You get there by boat. In the winter, it could be snow machine or, snowmobile if you're from the lower 48. And so we do have a lot of remote locations in Alaska. It's about 75% of our state lives in some populated areas, but the other 25% lives pretty remote. Alaska is 2.5 times the size of Texas, with only a population of 700,000 people. Now, we do have several events during the year that is very popular amongst Alaskans, and one of them is going to be the Alaska State Fair. So the State Fair falls in the fall, and it is the biggest attraction pretty much for the state of Alaska. We have vendors from all over the state. We have people from all over Alaska come to Palmer, which is about 45 minutes north of Anchorage. And so you are kind of in the south central area of Alaska, in the most populated section of Alaska. And like I said, it's in the fall, and it is definitely the biggest attraction. We end up with a lot of concerts, a lot of large artists come up for that state fair, and typically half the state comes out for that state fair, and it lasts a little over 2 weeks. So in the wintertime, we do have a fun place called Verrandi. It helps that it starts with the start of the Iditarod, which is the longest dog sled race in the world. And so there's a whole carnival and a whole bunch of different stuff, ice bowling, ice sculpting, and it's all located right in downtown Anchorage. So something that you probably wouldn't see in a whole lot of other places, but you would probably expect in Alaska. Another tip is be prepared for a culture change when it comes to clothing. We don't have as many stores in Alaska as you would like LA or New York or being part of the lower 48. And also it's pretty common for people to wear flannels, extra tufts, Carhartts, stuff like that, even into nice restaurants. And so you won't see a lot of that really swaggy, high-end clothing here in Alaska. And people don't flaunt as much with their clothing as they do in the lower 48. So you'll have some very wealthy people who will show up in a flannel, a pair of Carhartts, and extra tough boots. Another fact is there is a tremendous amount of amazing Alaska Native heritage here in Alaska, and it's deeply ingrained into a lot of the stuff here, between street names, into the names of cities and villages, into Denali, the mountain. Everything is ingrained with some form of some of the different Alaska Native language and art, and so you'll be prepared to see a lot of that, and it's really, truly, really exquisite, and it's really cool to catch on to. Probably the biggest problem you're going to have is pronouncing it. So it's one of the biggest things that us Alaskans will first notice when we know someone's not from Alaska, is because of the pronunciation of some of the streets and towns and villages and stuff like that. But that's okay. Most Alaskans are really friendly, and we're always here to help you. And we love pointing out stuff and obviously sharing our beautiful state and, of course, a lot of the Native culture with you all. There is the Alaska Native Heritage Center, which is located here in Anchorage. It gives you a whole in-depth look at Alaska Native culture here in Alaska. And then, of course, the Anchorage Museum has an entire section dedicated to Alaska Native heritage as well. And they provide a pretty in-depth look into what life is like and what you kind of used to be like, in parts of remote Alaska and some of the Native villages. Now, another thing that we're going to have is it gets dark and really light here. So in the summer months, we have the summer solstice, and we have daylight for almost 24 hours a day. That's right. You heard that. But it's not instantaneous. So we do get a lot of people that come to Alaska in the summertime, and they are just really impressed on how much daylight we have, because it really lasts almost all day long. We have the sun that starts in the very early morning, and it'll be 2 o'clock in the morning, and the sun is still up and barely creeping behind the mountains, and then it will start to rise again. Now, however, we have the exact opposite swing in the winter. So just like summer solstice, we have a winter solstice, which is at the very end of December. And that is our shortest day of the year, where we get roughly around 3 hours of daylight in an entire day. So doesn't provide for a lot of daylight. A lot of people use happy lights or box lights that provide kind of some of that. But there are also a lot of Alaskans who take the winter to travel, typically to warmer climates where there's a little more sun. But so be prepared for that. And we do have, so you will experience a lot of light along with a lot of cold. Now, as far as some other stuff goes, we do have a lot of fun things. We do have a massive craft brewing culture here. So we have some world-renowned brewing, such as beer that comes from Anchorage Brewing. There's a lot of microbrews. There's, of course, a bunch of other different microbrews. We have 49 State. You have Hoodoo in Fairbanks. And then, of course, there's a plethora of breweries and little microbrews across Anchorage and all over Alaska, the populated areas, to pretty much fit any beer drinker's taste buds. As far as, back to jobs, we do have a lot of opening jobs because of course, the weather here can be a little challenging. And so if you're coming, we do end up with a lot of people that come here for work. So if you're looking for work, this is definitely a great place to come. Now, we do, like I said earlier, have a lot of off-grid living and remote living. So it is possible to live fully off-grid and be remote. Only part of our, only part of our state is accessible by road system, and there's quite a bit of it, like I said earlier, that is only accessible by plane or boat, snow machine, four-wheeler, so that makes it pretty challenging. As far as some other stuff that we commonly get some asked questions for, and that you should probably know, is we have earthquakes. Not small ones, but some pretty decently sized ones. So in 1964, it was the Good Friday earthquake, where we had a massive earthquake that was over 9 on the Richter scale and shook for 5 minutes long. And actually, parts of Anchorage actually fell into the inlet. We had a massive amount of property damage, and even some few lives lost, as well as a tsunami that hit an area by Portage area and took out an entire town. So it's pretty common for us to get some decent shakers throughout the year. And then, of course, in 2018, we had another large earthquake in November that was 7.2. Both of these large earthquakes, of course, made international news. But a lot of the buildings here in Alaska are made to withstand earthquakes. Just be prepared that, you will feel the ground shake from time to time. This is normal. We are in the ring of fire. And, of course, on one of the sections of the earth where the plates shift. And so, like I said, we will feel some earthquakes. Now, as far as what to expect with weather, it really kind of depends on the region of Alaska you're in, because like I said, it is 2.5 times in Texas, and we have a wide variety of weather across Alaska. We do have the entire Aleutian chain, which is very long. We have southeast Alaska, which is goes down the Canadian coast almost all the way to down to British Columbia area. And then, of course, we also have the northernmost point in the United States, and that is Utuvik or Barrow, Alaska. And there's a lot of North Slope drilling up there, and that's where a lot of oil production is as well. But the temperatures can vary greatly amongst those areas. Here in South Central Alaska, the mainly populated section of Alaska, in Anchorage, Wasilla, Palmer, our winters are fairly mild. We average between 10 and 30 degrees in the wintertime. We do dip down into minus temperatures, but our cold is typically a dry cold. So put on a few layers and you're typically not, you feel pretty good. Now, our summers are, decently warm. So we are a little bit closer to the sun. So that is going to be a different experience for you. So when it's 75 degrees here in Alaska, it's going to feel a little bit different than 75 degrees, if you're in Oregon or California or whatnot. It's actually going to feel warmer because we are closer to the sun. So be prepared for that. Now, if you are headed north, so in the Fairbanks area, you will have actually warmer summers in the summertime. So they're about 10 degrees warmer than Anchorage, but they're also significantly colder in the winter. So in Fairbanks, Alaska, is the Arctic Research Center. They have the University of Alaska Fairbanks. But those temperatures can reach 50, 55 below zero for an extended period of time, sometimes a few weeks in the wintertime. But of course, then the summers can hit 90, 95 degrees. And so you're having substantial temperature changes of roughly 150 degrees between the winter and the summer. Now, if you go even further north to Utah and Barrow and the North Slope up there, it's really flat, and you're in the Arctic, and so therefore you're going to end up with a lot of wind chill. So it's going to be cold plus wind chill on top of it. So even with wind chill, it's pretty common to hit, maybe minus 80, 90 below zero. And then, of course, it will be not as warm in the summertime because it's right next to the ocean. Now, if we go a little further south from Anchorage into the south central Alaska, these are actually classified as a rainforest area, and so you'll have warmer weather. They won't get nearly as much snow, but quite a bit more rain and beautiful summers, and they're beautiful areas. And then you'll obviously see on how much the vegetation and trees change as you go throughout Alaska. So if you have the opportunity, I would encourage everyone to take the cruise lines up the Inside Passage and go see all those cool spots. It gives you the option to go see calving of the glaciers, a lot of wildlife, and of course all of the sea mammals and whales and everything that is next to our inlets and next to all the places where the cruise lines go. And of course, one of the biggest benefits of being in Alaska is, of course, seeing all the really cool things. So we have the 3 tallest peaks in North America right here in Alaska. We also have the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights, which are visible quite a bit through October through April. And, of course, it's nice and dark, so it's a pretty good chance that you're going to see it multiple times a year during the winter months. And so these are obviously some of the awesome things about moving to Alaska. Now, you have to be prepared for driving in the snow. So that was one of the other things that a lot of people who are moving to Alaska may have not experienced if they're not from colder states. So just realize that we do get quite a bit of snow. As of right now, our just south of Anchorage is Gerwood and Alyeska Resort, and they're currently at over 500 inches of snow on that ski mountain. And, so it's pretty common to get quite a bit of snow. So, learning how to drive in the snow, get yourself some snow tires. And, of course, you're going to want to invest in a shovel. So hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed these tips about moving to Alaska, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, everybody, we really hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, hit that like button, drop us a comment if there's anything you guys want to see in the near future, as we love to share our complete life about Alaska and, of course, buyer and seller education. And, of course, we will see you on the next one.